Let's go back to Kereakos. What do you like and dislike most about this deal?
I don't really like anything about it, to be honest with you, because it's just a Band-Aid. It's not doing anything for long term. It's not really curing anything. All we're doing is not spending as much. We're really not cutting. We're just not going to spend a little bit. We started out at $5 trillion, then it was $4. Now it's like 2.7. And it's not. There's no long-term solution. That's also going to cause probably us to have a downgrading in the credit rating, because we're not meeting the requirements to stay AAA.
Right. They said $4 trillion.
Right, and we're not there. Right. So I don't think it's a speculation of whether it is. I think it's going to happen. Although I'm sure they're being pressured right now by government to not do that.
Tara, several articles today talking about the impact of this on the field of Republican presidential nominees who are, for the most part, not members of Congress, and all but one, former Governor Huntsman of Utah, have come out against this deal. Of course, they have the luxury of doing that since they didn't have to compromise with the other party and actually place a vote on it. So they're clearly, according to these editorials today, appealing to the conservative side, the Tea Party side, and then that they're saying that President Obama, on the other hand, is trying to appeal to the moderates, trying to look like the big compromiser. Do you think these respective strategies are going to pay off?
Ultimately, I think that still the overriding issue is going to be the economy and how well the economy is doing and how people feel at the time of the election, and whether or not they feel the candidates, any of them, are going to be able to make them feel better. Because in a bad economy, people vote it tends to be tied to emotion. And so I think for the president, I do think the polling shows that most Americans wanted to see compromise, and I think that the president certainly did that. I think that's a problem for his base, because they think he compromised too much. So he certainly did that. He did compromise, and that was reflected in the polling, and overwhelmingly reflected in the polling. Like vast majorities of Americans said, we want to see government work together. And historically, people like divided government for that reason, because they feel like one side doesn't have too much power.
Right.
And they want to see both sides come together.
All right, Kereakos, what's the impact here on the presidential race?
Well, I think that it's going to come down to what Tara's saying. I think it's going to come down to an emotional decision at the end. But here's what I think about this whole thing. The Tea Party movements, they're being cast as these radicals. Somebody's got to do something about this debt. We've got to fix it. We've got to balance this budget. And hard decisions are going to have to be made. Cuts are going to have to be made to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, whether we like it or not. So it's not really. It shouldn't even be about what people are going to feel good about. Yeah, they're going to go to something that appears to be balanced, but at the end of the day, they don't understand the depth of how bad it really is. And then a few years later, we're going to be dealing with this again. That's why this has been going on and on and on. But we're at a level that we've never been before. And if we don't do something now, it's just going to be catastrophic. So as hardline as they may seem, as drawing the line in the sand, it's got to be done. If you're operating a business and you're spending more than you take in, you either shut down, you're out of business, or you start making cuts and adjustments. The money isn't free. We can't keep printing money and raising the debt ceiling, period. It just doesn't work.
You're shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head because most businesses run on debt. They either get money from equity investors, or which they still have to pay those investors, or they get money from where they borrow and they still have to pay it in the form of debt. So I disagree with that assessment. To make that analogy, I mean, whenever a business goes public, they're raising capital. That's how they run their business. So they are spending money that they technically don't have, right? It belongs to other people. But that's a different issue. My point is that the real issue in this country is jobs. If we brought that unemployment rate down to where it needs to be, a lot of these debt issues would be resolved.
But a lot of people would say the reverse, that if you resolve the debt issues, you solve the unemployment problem.
I don't agree with that. I think